So my name is Katie Gomel-Kywitz. I work in the admissions office here at Bear Creek. I work with our families, 5th grade and above, who are looking at coming to Bear Creek. And I also work with families throughout transitional years, so families from 8th grade looking at high school to really make sure that our current families are prepared for the steps ahead. I am also an alumni of Bear Creek, so I graduated in 2013. So I know firsthand the value of a Bear Creek education because I came up through this program and was able to learn from many of the great teachers that we have and still have here at Bear Creek. And so I'm excited that you all have an opportunity to hear from some of our amazing educators tonight. One of the things that I found really valuable about going to high school at Bear Creek was the liberal arts philosophy that we have here as a school. And this idea that as a Bear Creek student, you learn not just what to think, but how to think about different subjects. And I see the value in that as I've gone out into college and now my career. The goal of the program tonight is really to peel back the lens on high school and what that looks like. And so that's what the title of the event was trying to evoke. And so my hope for tonight is that as students and parents, you leave here with a better understanding of what high school looks like at Bear Creek, both the academic side, but also what the student life looks like, what those opportunities are. And not just that you leave with a better understanding, but as students and parents that you feel empowered and confident to take that next step in your education. So I'm really excited to hear the speakers tonight, and I know that there'll be a lot of great content for you all. So please feel free to get some refreshments if you haven't, or get up to refill your coffee if you need to throughout the evening. And then I will introduce our first speaker. So we'll be hearing from Linda Graham, and she has been teaching at Bear Creek. She said she celebrated her 20th year here last spring. So this is the start of her 21st year at Bear Creek. And she is all about science here and math as well, but she has her BS in chemistry and BA in physics. And Linda will be sharing with us a little bit about what the STEM program looks like at Bear Creek and really the value of STEM and science and how that ties into that liberal arts philosophy.
Katie didn't say it, but I met her mother when I was at Whitworth College. That's where I got my undergraduate, and then I got a master's in chemistry at UW. So yes, I love STEM. And I married an engineer. How about that? So we have a pretty nerdy dinner conversations many a day. Well, I'm going to try something unique with you, and I tried it with my physics students this morning, so we'll see what we can do. I want you to try making an origami heart, and I'll make the connection in a minute. So grab one piece of paper, whatever color. There should be some Post-it notes at your place, and everybody should just get messy and try this. Are you ready? I'm going to put a video on to help us do that. You're going to carefully unfold it. You're going to fold the bottom flap to the center crease. Now flip it over so the sticky part's away from you. And you can see the fold. You're going to fold to the center crease, almost like you were making a paper airplane, my kids this morning said. Yes, good thinking. Going to do that on both sides. you're going to flip it over, so you'll be seeing the sticky part again. And you're going to fold the bottom tip up so that it aligns with the top. It's a little bit awkward, but you can get that point right up to the center. Make that crease at the bottom. And here comes the tricky part. You're going to flip it over. There's two little pieces at the bottom, little flaps. So open them up carefully and then flatten the one on the right to create a little tiny triangle on the right-hand side. Now do the same thing on the other side, on the left. You're doing great, by the way. Now each of those little squares, you can see one is left over on the left, there's one on the right. You're folding that up to create a triangle. Now fold the tip up until it just meets that first fold line. Okay, doing great. If you flip it over, you should see the heart. Okay, now we're going to just fold it back on each side, just like that. Fold it back on the other side. And we're going to freeze it right there, because that's really far enough for us. You have a bookmark. And if you stick the flap of the heart under the book page, the sticky part will stick to the back of the page. And now you have a Valentine for your favorite person. Now, I could play it again, but I have a few things I'd like to talk to you about. So how about this? I talked to you about a few things about STEM at Bear Creek and make the connection to origami. Why do we do this? I mean, I thought I was coming here to talk about STEM. At the end, if there's time, I'll show you the video one more time and you can try it again. All right, to make the connection, what's origami got to do with STEM? And we keep saying the words, or the acronym STEM, but you know it means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I'd actually read about this connection a little bit, and I heard a great TED Talk by a man named Robert Lang. So if you want to write down somebody terrific and go find that TED Talk, he's amazing, and you'll see some of his work. He's a scientist, actually a trained astrophysicist, but he had this passion for origami, just did it in his spare time kind of, but it started to creep into the science he was doing. So this fall, I went to New York City to visit my daughter, and there's actually, geek heaven, a museum of math in New York City. Oh my goodness, it's like the Pacific Science Center here, only it's all math. I loved it. So my daughter, quite nerdy, her husband an engineer, and my husband an engineer. We were just loving it. Anyway, they happened to have in their special gallery an origami exhibit, and some of Robert Lang's art was there, but also some of the other artists who've been doing origami. It was magnificent. At any rate, I started to explore this a little bit to see what's the connection to science and math, and how has Robert Lang gotten into the picture. And what I found was there are actually self-assembling robots, and you can see on that top left one, the guts of it, the motorized part of it is there, but it actually unfolds itself. So where might you use that? Maybe you're sending something up to a planet or moon that you want to explore. It can be sent up in the rocket small. It can get on the planet or the asteroid or whatever you want to explore, assemble itself, and crawl around. How cool is that? Robert Lang, I told you he was an astrophysicist. One of the things that you've maybe heard of, you've heard of the Hubble Space Telescope probably, but getting a telescope up in space that has a large enough lens to see way out into far galaxies, you need a huge lens, but you can't take that in a rocket. It'd be too heavy, it'd be too huge. So he had the idea of making a folding lens using origami folds. That's brilliant. And it's being used. He also was asked to help design airbags. Modern airbags are actually folded up in an origami way. In New York, at this Museum of Math, I saw the most beautiful origami fabric designs. It was incredible. And then this one, I hope none of you need to know about this, but a stent that's used to inflate an artery for cardio difficulties, if you have heart disease, they'll put this stent in because it can be made very small to fit into the artery and then expand inside the artery wall to hold it open. That's brilliant. So then I thought, I wonder if there's any evidence of origami in nature. And sure enough, there's a thing called a mirafold. I'm not sure if I'm saying that completely correctly, but when you do it, you get these mountains and valleys, and it kind of makes this accordion-like structure. It folds really small. I think the stent is more along those fold lines. It turns out that leaves and insect wings unfurl this way. And what else? I tell you about the petals of leaves. That's so cool. So we always think we're the great designers, and then we find out, oh no, God thought of that first. So it's in creation. It's part of the nature. So I just think that's so cool. So that's why the connection to origami and STEM. So how do we set people up for success at Bear Creek in STEM? And that's what I want to talk to you about tonight, really. How we equip our students to lead lives of wisdom, compassion, and courage in the STEM fields. So, when you think of STEM, you think of these main courses that you'll take: math and sciences, maybe engineering, computer programming, all kinds of things that we do offer here. And I'm going to talk about those a little bit more. But you also need what we might call soft skills, like adaptability, lifelong learning commitment, communication skills, creative thinking. I'm certainly been here a long time. I've learned a lot of science, but I love to keep learning about science, and that's a love I hope to instill in my students. Well, what about this commitment to being able to adapt to change? Students don't always know, and we wouldn't expect a ninth grader to come in and know what they're going to be when they grow up. And besides that, they might change 5 times, and they are actually training for careers that don't even exist yet. And that's the kind of adaptability and flexibility we need. But we do offer a project in grade 9 that's a careers in science exploration. And students have a chance to explore any science career or related career. We encourage them to make contacts with actual scientists. And we have some scientists, some are alums, some are people that I know in the field, and they can get in touch with them. So that's kind of a cool thing. We do a similar thing in engineering, where each unit that we study in engineering, if we're studying chemical engineering, which we did in December, designing coffee. Oh, it smells good in my room then. Then we learn about the job of chemical engineering and related fields. So for example, in Jan term, which we're doing right now, we have lots of STEM folks in the building teaching specialized classes, and that's pretty fun to be meeting these teachers. So the engineering class is one that I teach and love. This is another place where you really have to be adaptable because things don't always go the way that you planned. And that's one of the things I love about the engineering class. What you're seeing on the left is a still photograph. I should someday get a video in here, but you see how my video things work. But the students actually build a little box. They learn programming skills, and it's a systems engineering project where they have put together 3 different systems with sensors that can sense how high the thing is. It must get to a certain many meters, and then it's dropped. It needs to sense when it's near the ground, and there's a tiny little motor inside that clicks the button on a tiny little camera and takes pictures all the way down. And those 3 all have to be merged on a circuit board, and all the software has to work together. So it's a huge challenge, and the kids do it every year, and they're amazing what they come up with. So very fun. What about if you're maybe engineering isn't your thing? That happens to be one of the classes I teach, so I could talk about it all day. But if you love biology, the biology classes tour a cancer research center. They go to the UW Biology and Oceanography Center at Friday Harbor. They take a field trip every year. They attend lectures at the Seattle Aquarium and the UW Mini Med School. So they want to get out in the community and see what's going on out there. It's not just the books and the halls of Bear Creek. What does this mean? A commitment to lifelong learning. We want students to understand that it's not just about the money or a glorious job, but also a purpose. And I put my daughter up here, Dr. Beth Patterson, and she attended Bear Creek. She said in her junior year, she was reading her Bible one night, and this verse from Mark just popped up on the page. And the verses of heal the sick really spoke to her, and that's when she began to feel called to be a doctor. And it's a huge commitment, the medical field, the training that's required. So she is in residency in New York. She's completed undergrad at WSU, got a degree in neurobiology. She went to the University of Colorado in Denver, and now she's in the Bronx in a very high volume public hospital, so emergency medicine in the Bronx. So this is propelling her, this love she has, this calling she feels, and her education here at Bear Creek just paid off in so many ways. Lots of stories I could tell about that. One of the things that Bear Creek does is prepare our students to be excellent writers. Now that's going to happen a lot in the humanities classes, but we also, in science, we teach kids to do good science writing. So there's techniques for good scientific writing as well. But you have teachers that are actually reading your papers. They're making suggestions. Your rhetoric classes, you're learning how to communicate. So one of the things my husband is always telling me as an engineer and he's been in multiple startups, but he's been interviewing, and he always asks new engineers to come in and tell him about something that they've designed. And if they can't do that, they can't communicate their ideas, they're probably not going to get the job. So that's something that I have our students do as well. Well, we've been learning at Bear Creek about design thinking, and all the faculty has been trained in some professional development in the middle and upper school, and we're using design-based thinking in classes here. So especially in science classes, but it doesn't have to just be for producing a product. It can be for producing solutions to problems. Like if the carpool line was too long, we could work on that through the design thinking theory. If we saw that we needed to get kids to clean up their mess in the lunchroom afterwards, we could we could go through the design thinking process to figure out a good solution to that. So maybe parents have a problem at home that they would like to run through this model. I don't know. I did the engineering class. We use this all the time. They created an emergency preparedness kit for maybe an earthquake or something like that for different focus groups, and they sold them at the auction last year. So you might have had an opportunity to purchase that. They thought of the group, maybe a college student would want that, maybe an older person would need that. So they had rolling backpacks to accommodate an older person not wanting to carry around the various things that would belong in a kit like that. Now, I said you'd need to know a little bit about the classes. So we have a science sequence that's typical. If you're a ninth grader, generally you would take conceptual physics, then chemistry, then one of our biology choices, and then as a senior, AP chemistry or AP physics or engineering or some combination. You can either turn it up or turn it down, depending on what your interests are. Accelerate it or go the course. We personally really like this physics first sequence. It's really a great sequence, and that way you get lots of exposure to the science that you love. We have a mathematics roadmap. Typically, a ninth grader might come in at geometry, then algebra 2, honors, pre-calculus, and then take Calc AB or AP statistics. You can turn that up or down depending where you come in the sequence. So we do have some kids that come in from middle school or other schools and they're already taking algebra 2 as a ninth grader. That can happen. And then they go a little further. So I'm not showing all the possibilities. We also offer computer science. That's not on here, but that would be important to know too. Here's a list of all the STEM courses that we offer at Bear Creek. In that we do have the AP Computer Science showing. I count technical theater as part of the STEM group. We go all the way to multivariable calculus, which is pretty impressive actually. So that's possible if you that's your passion and you love the math. We offer the full complement of APs in science as well. We try to publicize lots of opportunities for summer internships. Here's some of the places that kids have gone. So just thought you would like to maybe see some of that. We have extracurricular activities here. Mu Alpha Theta is our math organization. We've started a student technology assistance team because we have surfaces for students to use and sometimes there's some troubleshooting. We have math competitions. We have a coding club. So lots of opportunity if you like STEM extracurriculars. Last year I thought, I wonder how many STEM kids there are as graduates. And all I could do to really figure it out, they don't keep track in the development office, but I have a LinkedIn account and I just looked for all my contacts of Bear Creek students and looked to see what they're doing. And at that point in time, I counted over 35 in engineering, computer software, science degrees, and lots in the medical fields. That's pretty great. And I'm just one person. And they don't always, I don't recognize maybe their married name now, but it's so fun to run into them in different places. So I think that's all I have for you for right now. And I'll stick around, and if you have some questions that you want to ask me, if you want to try more origami, I'm telling you, just Google origami on Post-it notes, and you will find more than you can imagine. Really cute stuff. So I hope you've had fun tonight, and I hope I see you back here at Bear Creek.
Thank you, Linda. I had no idea there was origami on the moon, or at least telescopes. So that was fascinating to learn. Next, we will have Dr. Jeff Gephart, and Jeff is our Dean of Students here in the upper school, and he is passionate about student leadership, along with many other topics about connecting community, really in the upper school outside of the classroom. And so I'm excited for him to share some of his knowledge with you all tonight. And he got his master's in divinity from Princeton Theological Seminary, and he has been working at Bear Creek now for many years, and we're very blessed to have him. So, Jeff, come on up.
Thank you, Katie. It's good to be here with y'all. How's everybody doing? All right. So I remember when I was a kid, hanging out at my friend Sean's house, just kind of joking around. I remember sitting at the dinner table, and I don't remember exactly what Sean said in terms of what the topic was, but he was like, he said, "Dad, everybody's doing it." And it was probably, like a movie that everybody was watching or something like that. And I remember Sean's dad was like, "If everybody jumped off a cliff, would you do it?" And Sean was like, "No, wouldn't do that." So I don't know if some of the adults in the room have kind of grown up with that phrase, but it kind of gets at this idea of like, just because everybody's doing something, does that really mean that is something that is important to you? So I want to talk about leadership. I want to talk about leadership at Bear Creek, but I want to talk specifically about what it means to start with myself in terms of leadership, because maybe some of you in the room are thinking, I want to be a leader at some point, or I want to have a leadership position, I want to influence in some way. And that starts as a journey that we decide to take ourselves. And we think at Bear Creek that actually starts with thinking about like, what is core to my center, which we would say is our Christian faith, but even sort of virtue and what we feel like purpose is really about. So I want to talk about leadership at Bear Creek. This is a statement that we created a few years ago to just kind of frame up what we were trying to get at. And what we said was that that Bear Creek seeks to develop leaders, that we want to be intentional about developing the next generation of leaders by preparing students who think well and who are compelled by their faith to engage the world with wisdom, compassion, and courage. So if you know kind of the vision of who we are as a school, that kind of ties into what we talk about. And that means a few things. The first thing it means is that it means we want to think well. So obviously, like we as a school really value having a vigorous academic education and pursuing, you've heard a little bit, like pursuing critical thinking and pushing students to challenge themselves appropriately. But what that really applies in terms of being a leader is it really says, I'm going to be a student. I'm going to be a student of leadership. I've been doing this for about 30 years now, and I still learn every single day, like, what does it really mean to be a leader? And I haven't arrived. And so the first thing is to really ask the question, am I willing to be a student of leadership? Before I even think about, like, am I going to have a role somewhere or whatever, it's just, do I want to think well as a person, and what does that mean? The second is that we want to prepare students who not only think well, but they're compelled by their faith to engage the world. So as a Christian school, we believe that what that means is like following Christ into the world and his mission. And for many of you, that's maybe where you're at as well. Maybe some of you are not so sure quite about that, but you can think of it also this way, as faith talks about what are the things that we really see as ultimate. And we see faith as being the energy and the passion that propels us to do something. It's the compelling reason why. Why is it that I want to influence someone? And that's really actually what leadership is all about. Leadership is really all about influence. It's not about a title. It's not about I've got certain gifts that I was born with. Leadership really is about, do you want to be an influencer? Do you want to somehow make a difference in another person's life? Now, as a Christian, like, I feel compelled by my faith in Christ to go out into the world and love people compassionately and share the good news. But faith really is that energy that gets us out there. And then finally, we would say leadership's about influence. It's about continuing to learn how to influence. It's about being compelled by our faith to influence, but it's also about doing it virtuously. So we talk about wisdom and compassion and courage. You can go out and be a great leader. And if you love history, you can see that there are people historically who have been amazing leaders. but they have not been virtuous people, right? We can name a few, right? Usually people like Hitler come to mind, or some other dictator or whatever that has hurt a lot of people. That's not virtuous leadership. I have a hard time calling that leadership personally, because I think my definition really of leadership is about virtue. But we could say maybe that person was a leader, but they didn't do it virtuously. So as a school, we want our graduates to go out into the world with wisdom, compassion, and courage. And really that's just basically saying we want them to use their head, their heart, and their hands to influence people for good in a way that demonstrates virtue. So those are the three kind of virtue categories that we've talked about that really encompass what that means. It just means that I'm an ethical leader, that I do good, I don't do harm. So that's what we're trying to do. And in all the programs that we have, we want students to at least experience that, and also to start thinking about it in terms of core ideas. So let's say I'm in 7th grade and I'm like, I've never really been involved in any leadership positions, and so I'm kind of unsure about that, but I see myself as somebody who could maybe be a leader, but I just don't know what to do. If leadership is about influence, then leadership has to start with where you are right now. Not where I'm going to be in 3 years, not that position or that I want to be an ASB officer or that thing I want to get elected to, but actually right now. So one of the things that I think is super helpful is to think about, where do I actually have influence right now? And Stephen Covey is a guy who wrote this famous book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Leaders. His son wrote a book for teens, which is a good book. It's listed on the handout that I gave you. He talks about this idea of a circle of concern and a circle of influence. And he says that all of us have a circle of concern, and that encompasses the wide range of concerns that we have, such as our well-being, our health, our family, maybe problems or challenges that we have at school or at work. And then sort of outside of ourselves in our community, like what is our government doing? What's the economy like? What's the overall climate of a social group that I'm broadly a part of, that kind of thing. That's our circle of concern, right? It can be other things. It can be a threat to my safety, or a sense of like, what's my future like? Am I going to be okay in the future? We all have that. Within that, we have our circle of influence, right? Because there are some of those things that we can't do anything about. We can't always change, I don't know, if you're a Bear Creek student, you may not love our dentist uniform. You can't necessarily change that right away. However, you can have influence within our school in certain spheres. And so there are some things that you can't necessarily snap your fingers and change. Mr. Kruth has a circle of influence that matches that, right? Like he could change that if he wanted to. But the circle of influence that you have is a little bit more narrow. What are the things that you can influence? Well, you can influence your bodily discipline and just your overall health. You have some influence on, maybe there's some genetics. You can influence whether you choose to smile at people and whether you choose to be kind to them. You can influence whether you choose to study or not study. There's a lot of things. So what I want you to do right now is think about, you should have a handout. Write down, just take 60 seconds and write down, what are the things that you have influence over right now, the things that you can control. And the reason why I'm saying that is because this is what Covey says. He says that being proactive means being responsible for our own lives. So our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. And proactive people focus on issues within their circle of influence. They work on things that they can do something about. The nature of their energy in doing this is positive, enlarging, and magnifying. They increase then their circle of influence. So take just a second, think about this idea of what are things that you actually have influence over right now, that if you wanted to change something or do something, you could. And just take a few minutes to write some notes. One of the things I mentioned earlier about how we can influence is our commitment to learning. If you're somebody who's interested in asking the question, how can I influence people? If leadership is really about influence and I have to be somehow proactive in my circle of influence, then one of the things that I can change is and grow in is myself. I can grow in my understanding of who I am. I can grow in my understanding of how I act towards people. I can grow in my understanding of using the gifts and the talents and the abilities, right, that God has given me. So one of the things that we really believe in terms of our leadership culture here at Bear Creek is that we want to help students continue to grow in understanding of who they are. How is it that, God has wired you? Not everybody's the same. Leaders don't have to look the same. Leaders don't have to all be that charismatic, person who just rallies everybody and everybody follows to, and they're kind of the life of the party and that kind of thing. Sometimes we go, that's the person who's going to be a great leader. And I've seen leaders in our school and leaders in our community like that do amazing work. I've also seen leaders who are really quiet and reserved and have, like to have just a few really strong relationships primarily and are more introverted, be amazing influencers and amazing leaders. Right? So one of the things I want you to hear right now is if you're starting on this leadership journey and you're kind of asking the question, how do I do that? Part of your circle of influence is asking yourself right now, who am I? How am I wired? And there's cool tools to kind of look at that, like Do What You Are, Strengths Finder. Those are some things that are like on Naviance is a program that we use here. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is something that we'll do in leadership workshops. We'll get students to do that and kind of reflect on how they're wired. And that's a part of understanding what circle of influence is all about. So far I've said leadership is about influence. I've said that leadership is that it's fueled by faith. It's given passion and energy by our faith, and it works basically in a virtuous way, in a way that expresses wisdom, compassion, courage, and that we start with our circle of influence. We start with ourselves, which means understanding really ourselves first. If you want to lead others, you have to lead yourself well first. Now I want to talk about what does it mean when we actually start influencing people. So what I want you to do is take out that worksheet again and write down, there's a section here that says personal best. I want to ask you this question. When you were involved in something that you felt like amazing at, you felt like that guy, like that was amazing. Like it could be a project, it could have been a team experience. Doesn't have to necessarily be a formal leadership project, but think back into something that you've done where you were like, I was kind of at my personal best, and what happened in that environment with that group of people and whatever it was, team, organization, group project, drama, I felt alive and I felt like I was at my personal best. So do you have that in your mind? You're going to have to just pick one because we're going to do this quick. I don't have too much more time. So just think of something, the first thing that comes to mind. An environment of my personal best. Jot it down right there on your handout. And then here's what I want you to think about it. So the next question is, what were some of the things that you felt like you were doing that actually contributed to being your personal best, the success that you experienced in that project, that situation, that environment? What are some of those specific actions? So take another minute or so and kind of think about that. I'm going to have you share out with a partner just at least like one thing that you noticed that you were doing that contributed to it feeling like this was your personal best experience, okay? Does that make sense? All right, ready? Go. So write yourself first and then I'll cue you to share. Write your notes down. Okay, with wherever you're at, go ahead and turn to somebody next to you and share out what was one thing that you felt like you were doing that was contributing to this success in this personal best experience. Okay? So go ahead and just kind of do that quickly. 30 seconds or so a person just to share with a partner. All right, like 30 more seconds. Okay. I know I've not given you that much time. We do this workshop here at Bear Creek called Leadership, and it's something we require our elected officers to do, but it's available for anyone. And the purpose of it is to kind of walk through some of the things that we're doing tonight. So we do it a little bit longer format, obviously, than 25 minutes that I'm using here. And we introduce this model by these guys named Kouzes and Posner, Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner, called the Leadership Challenge. They have a material called the Student Leadership Challenge. There's a website that I referred to on the back of your handout. And they asked this question. When you were at your personal best, they did this, what we call qualitative research, right? Which you get people talking about stuff, and then you listen to the narrative, and you think about the themes that come out. And when they asked this question, they've done it now all over the world, among different nationalities, ethnicities, different age groups. They've done it all over the place, and they get very similar results all the time. Like, they get these themes that come up. And they ask that question, and people write about it and talk about it. And these are the things that people talk about. So we chose this model for our student leadership model as kind of primary concepts that we introduce to our students. And it's these 5 things. Model the way, which is like when I live what I preach, when I show people by my actions what is important, and I set the example. Inspiring a shared vision, right? Which is like, here, what is it that people want to accomplish? What's my vision? How can I articulate that? How can I share that among the community and see if we can get something happening? Challenging the process, which is basically looking outside the box and asking, how can we do this better? And is there something we're not thinking about? And being willing to kind of ask the why question and how can we do it better question. Enabling others to act, number 4, which is, I can't lead on my own. I got to lead with other people, right? So one of the mistakes we often do is we think what got me here in terms of my success in myself is like what's going to make me succeed. But actually what's going to make you succeed as a leader is when you give stuff away, when you help other people join the project and do something. That's what enabling others to act is about. And then finally, encouraging the heart. People have done a great job. They've pitched in. There's a lot of success we need to celebrate, or sometimes people are struggling and don't know what they're doing or whatever. We need to encourage them. We need to encourage them to step it up, or we need to encourage them to be, to feel glad and excited about the accomplishment that they've had, or that we've had, really. So that's the general model. And what they found is that when people talk about what they were doing when they were at their very best, these were the things that they were doing. So we've adopted that model as something that we want to teach intentionally. And I just wanted to kind of show you our scope and sequence. I'm not going through all this, but just to kind of show you. So what I love about the Kouzes and Posers model is you can take these 5 practices: model the way, inspire shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, encourage the heart, and they've broken up into 10 commitments, 30 behaviors, and then we added some other leadership skills to it. So what we try to do in teaching leadership here is in all the different ways, and we have probably 75 students who are involved in some kind of formal leadership position in the upper school. But these are available to anybody. Remember I said leadership is about what? Influence. It's not about a title. So no matter where you're at, and if you come into the upper school and you're a freshman, you may not have a title. That doesn't mean you can't be a leader. Because if you choose to use your circle of influence and you choose to be proactive, you can be a leader, right? And then eventually, if you want to have that title, you can use that title. So we use this model, and it's been really good for us. We've been working with it for a few years. And that's something that, those practices you can start today. If you're like, I want to start looking at this stuff right now, just go to the studentleadershipchallenge.com, which is on the handout, and start kind of paying attention to what are some of those things that I would need to do. I love this quote from Teddy Roosevelt. It's pretty famous. And what I love about it is that it talks about just what it means to just get out there and do something. And this is kind of how I want to leave you with the encouragement, with wherever you guys are at right now in terms of your own leadership journey or your sense of what am I doing. Start somewhere. And just be willing to go. And this is what he says: it is not the critic who counts. It's not the man or woman who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man or the woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself or herself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. That's what I want to encourage you and challenge you and leave you with. Does that sound kind of scary? It does kind of, doesn't it? I mean, I have some big dreams right now in my life that are kind of scary, to be honest. And I've been wrestling with God over the last 3 months or so of like, do I want to jump into that and be a part of that and do that? And I'm like, man, I don't know. But if you want to live a life of influence, you have to ask that question and you have to dream those dreams. And so that's what I want to leave you with and encourage you with. And finally, I think the question is, do you do it alone? And I would say, no, you don't. Ephesians 3:20 says, God can do anything, far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest dreams. And he does it not by pushing us around, but by working within us, his spirit deeply and gently within us. That's what I got for you guys tonight. Thanks for listening, and go for it.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And our last speaker tonight will be Emily Schuldt. And Emily has been working at Bear Creek now for 11 years in a few different capacities, but currently as our Dean of Academic Advising. And so she's really here to give you all an overview of what's next. What are the courses and what you can look forward to over the next 4 years in high school. So I'm excited to hear what you have to share, Emily.
All right. Thank you, Katie. And thank you to all of you for making it out on this dark, dark night. So succeeding in upper school is the topic I'm going to cover for the next 25 minutes. And before we jump into that, I want us to start with a conversation about what it means to succeed during the high school years. What does that mean exactly? How you define success in high school will really impact a lot of the decisions that you make, the path that you take, and how you feel about what you achieve in high school. So why don't you take just a minute or two and talk maybe with the person that you came with, or if you came on your own, jot down a few notes about what your ideas of success in upper school are. And if you're a parent and child combo, parents, I wonder if you'd want to let your child go first, and then it might be interesting for you to tell them what your ideas were of success in high school when you were that age. So take just a couple minutes. And actually, I won't ask you to share this with the big group. This is just kind of an exercise between you. Okay, so on my slide up here, I have some of the ways that we sometimes define success. Sometimes we talk about it in terms of GPA. Sometimes we talk about the goal of college being, or of high school being getting into a good college. And sometimes we say that, having fun, making friends, having this good experience in high school is the goal. How you talk about success is going to really differ based on who you are as an individual. I mean, part of the mission of our school, which is up here behind me, is that this education is shaping you to become the individual God intends. So how you define success will look a little bit different from any other student. I will say, kind of as an aside, that Bear Creek, as a Christian classical school, has a framework that we look at success through. And so in high school, you're exposed to this amazing curriculum that exposes you to many of the great thinkers and events and ideas, philosophies of the ages, and overall disciplines. And the idea is that education shapes you and allows you to gain knowledge and understanding and wisdom to live a virtuous life. So in many ways, our goal for you as a school is to grow in virtue and to become people who live lives of wisdom, compassion, and courage. So as you're thinking through, what does success in high school mean for me? What does academic success mean? Kind of expect a little nudge from those of us around you to kind of remind you that, your story is actually even bigger than these things, and the mission that we have for your education is even bigger than these things. So that's all very lofty, and I hope to leave you with some practical things as well. So in pursuing success in upper school, I think there's 3 ways that I want to talk about that you can put yourself in the way of this really formative curriculum that you'll experience in high school. So I'm going to talk about choosing a challenging set of courses, practicing and refining good study skills and habits, and then kind of reinforce what Dr. Gephart was talking about with community involvement and leadership. So a strong liberal arts core is what we offer at the Bear Creek Upper School. And one of your handouts shows the course progression that students typically take in upper school. And at the heart of this progression is like I said, a strong liberal arts education. And regardless of how you choose your courses, you really can't do it wrong. By meeting our graduation requirements, all students graduate with this very special and strong preparation. But within that, there are a lot of ways that you can make individual choices that will shape the way your course plan pans out for you. So one of the things I do during the fall, and I've met many of you doing this, is I meet with every 8th grade family, and we talk about your course progression and your individual goals, and how we can make decisions academically to help you meet those goals. One of the things that's really fun about those conversations for me is that students kind of realize that although I'm going to be shaped by this curriculum, who I am is going to shape this 4-year plan as well. So if you're a student who is coming into upper school and you want to take every advanced math class that we offer, we can do that. There's the flexibility here to plan for that and to help you achieve that. If you're a student who's really focused on the arts and you want to take extra art classes through upper school, we can plan for that as well and make sure that happens for you. If you're a student who has really significant extracurricular activities, that's something that we should plan for too. And so those course plans for those 3 students may look very different from one another. The particulars of this course plan are best kind of figured out in individual advising sessions, but I do want to highlight our AP curriculum. Bear Creek has an AP curriculum so that students have the opportunity to take courses that are more rigorous, that are college level, and allow them to really dig deep into subject matter that is the most interesting to them. So we offer quite a few AP courses in the junior and senior year, and there are a few options in 10th grade as well. So students should think really carefully about what AP courses they'd like to pursue. The first question to ask is, which subjects do you really love and which subjects are you passionate in? And that's really the first reason that you would want to choose to take an AP course. So, after you leave, you can take a look at this sequence, identify where there are AP courses, and maybe get a sense of of the different options. And then if I haven't met with you, if you're an 8th grade family, I'd love to get that on the books and go through that individual plan. In terms of course selection, our most successful students are informed by college admissions trends, but start with their own individual gifts, strengths, and goals. So rather than asking what are colleges wanting, what is everyone else doing, the most successful students start with their own interests and strengths and goals and choose their course rigor level from there. Okay. Study skills development is the next topic, and I think really strongly associated with student success in upper school. If we think of the courses that you'll be taking as the really healthy, delicious food that is nourishing your intellect and your soul, then the study skills are your abilities to cook. Okay, so the better that you can cook, the better food that you're going to be eating. So this should really be a priority for students, especially in the 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. The stronger your study skills are during those years, the more successful you'll be as your curriculum becomes more rigorous and as you go off to college and are required to use those skills too. So note-taking and annotation, these are the skills that you need to comprehend and work with the text and the information. Studying for exams, how well can you retain the information and to really digest it so that you're ready to show what you learned in exams. Time management. Time management is really an important part of being able to enjoy your upper school years. The better you can manage your time and use your time effectively, the more you're able to devote some other parts of your time to things that you really enjoy doing. Writing skills we've touched on already is an important focus of Bear Creek curriculum. And then interpersonal skills and self-advocacy skills. You may love group work or you may hate group work, but group work is developing your interpersonal skills, which are crucial for your success in high school and beyond. And then self-advocacy skills. How are you able to identify problems that need to be solved in your own life and taking steps to resolve those with the people that can help you? So an important thing to keep in mind is that all of these things are skills, and skills and habits take practice. So there may be some of us who are more organized than others of us naturally, but we can all practice time management and become better at those things. So I would say, especially in 9th grade, 8th and 9th grade, if students, you're identifying that I'm trying to study for exams and I'm getting a lower score than I expected, 9th grade is a great time to be addressing that with your teachers. Your teachers are available to help you with those study skills, not just the content. So in those kinds of situations, take advantage of the office hours times that we have available, and you can ask a teacher, I studied for this test like this, and this is the score I got. Help me build some skills that will help me to test better in the future. And that's something that they can help with. Okay, successful students in high school have a healthy mindset about college. College is such a big topic, and especially as we get into upper school, it's something that really dominates a lot of conversation, and it's exciting. I love to talk about college and college programs, but it's also a source of a lot of stress as well. And so I think keeping the college topic in a healthy place really contributes to the success of our upper school students. Think of college as part of your journey, not the destination. Okay, just like upper school is training you to become the individual God intends, and the destination is not the college that you go to afterwards. College is just that next step on that journey, and keeping your focus on your goals and who you're becoming keeps you in a healthier mindset while you're in high school. Think about what you'll do when you go to college, not just will you get in. So throughout all of your courses, you have opportunities to develop your interests and passion, and to be exposed to world problems that you'd like to begin knowing more about and addressing. Pay close attention to those things, and not just what colleges you want to go to and where you'll get in. But with that said, we have a great college advising office at Bear Creek, and there are lots of opportunities to learn more about colleges and programs, so that you're really well informed when the time does come to be selecting your school of choice. This last fall, over 80 colleges visited Bear Creek just to meet our students and to share about their college. We really encourage junior students to definitely take advantage of those appointments and meet those college representatives, but that's a great opportunity for younger students to start learning about what college programs are out there, what types of programs might interest them, and to start learning more about what kind of fit they may be looking for in the future. I also, to keep college just in the right place in our lives, it's helpful to attend all of the college advising programming that we offer. We have a great college advisor who walks families through the process of applying to college and helps you to understand what should be done when and what's required and how to be prepared. And then finally, our most successful students understand that colleges are looking for thinking, growing, problem-solving students. And so I think sometimes when we think about what colleges are looking for, it can be a little paralyzing, and we feel like we can't make a mistake. We have to have the perfect transcript. We have to take the most challenging courses, do all of the test prep. Otherwise, our futures are in jeopardy. And I want to share with you some of the Common App application essay prompts just to show that colleges are aware that they're admitting human students who are growing and changing and solving problems. This is from the Common App, which is a coalition of about 500 colleges, and they all put their heads together to come up with these essay questions that help them to understand, what they want to know about the students that are applying. So one of their questions: the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? So they're really interested in seeing how do you respond to the difficulties you face? How do you respond to failures and setbacks? So I think our most successful students here understand that it's okay to take risks. It's okay to try something that's hard, and it's okay to fail and have an imperfect transcript. But what colleges are looking for, and I think this ties into what we're all saying, is that we're cultivating a whole person here, and we want to be focusing on your growth as a person and your character development. Another question: describe a problem you've solved or that you'd like to solve. It can be an intellectual challenge, a research query, an ethical dilemma, anything that is of personal importance, no matter the scale. Explain its significance to you and what steps you took or could be taken to identify a solution. Another one: describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose track of time. Why does it captivate you? So these questions really reveal that colleges are looking for this whole person. They're not just looking for a transcript and a set of test scores. So I say that to encourage all of you that just embrace this experience in upper school, grow, take risks, and be willing to grow as a person, not just be presenting kind of a perfect image that you'll have on your transcript. So finally, these final thoughts, I hope that you will make the most of upper school by enjoying the classes that you take and choosing a challenging course load. And when I say challenging, I mean challenging for you, for your ability levels, and based on the other priorities and commitments that you have in your life. Choose a balanced set of courses that challenges you, but is not overwhelmingly difficult. Get to know your teachers and see them as advocates for you and coaches. This is one of the really special parts of the Bear Creek experience. These teachers who really know you personally and know your strengths and can challenge you where you're at and help you to grow as a person. So these are really your mentors, if you let them be. So make a point of getting to know them well. Get involved in extracurricular activities, and those will help you grow as a person as well. Being on a team or being in leadership, trying to make a difference in your school, all of these things will help you to grow as a person, and will develop your character and impact the person that you're becoming. And then finally, see yourself as a student, and that should go without saying, but a student is someone who is being taught something, tries it out for the first time, and does it imperfectly, and then takes feedback and tries to get better. I meet so many high school students that feel very stressed out about making a mistake, and that the fate of their future depends on getting an A on every test. I think our most successful students are the ones who are willing to try something new, to try something that's hard, to take feedback, to do it wrong sometimes, and then grow because of that feedback. So I hope that some of these things have been helpful to you and to help set a healthy and helpful framework for how you think about success in upper school.
Thank you so much, Emily. I want to thank all of our speakers again tonight for sharing their knowledge with us. And the speakers will stick around for a little bit afterwards. So if you do have questions, please feel free to go up to them and ask any questions that you may have from their talks. If you missed one of the handouts,